Well, good morning and welcome to part 4 of Ripples. We've been looking at this subject of ripples and how we create ripples and we receive ripples. That everywhere we go, we end up being on the receiving end of some ripples, and yet everywhere we go, we end up creating some ripples. That we can be intentional with some of the ripples that we create, and at other times we're just going to kind of go and do our own thing, and we're creating ripples that we never even intentionally meant to create, but people are certainly receiving something from that. That we've looked at relational ripples, we've looked at spiritual ripples, we've looked at moral ripples, and today we're going to be talking about financial ripples. Now, if you were here with us last week and we talked about these moral ripples, and today you're here with us and you're going, hey, we're talking about these financial ones, and you're like, maybe if you were here last week and you're here this week, you're like going, wow, that's kind of a double whammy, Will. I mean, couldn't you space those ones out a little bit more? I mean, those are two kind of tough things for us to kind of look at. And I said, well, you know what, let's just kind of put these right in the middle. And that way, if we get these done in the middle, I know you'll be able to last the last two. And so we'll be all right. We'll be all right. So when it comes to these ripples that we end up creating, because we all end up creating them, that what if we end up taking this approach with life that says, I want to make great ripples. I want to have a great impact on other people's lives around me. What if we took an approach that says, I want to be careful about where I go and where I am and the people I hang out with, because I want to be making sure that I'm intentional with what I'm receiving. Because see, some of the ripples that we end up receiving, that we have a choice over. We're choosing where we're going to be, who we're going to be hanging out with, who we're going to be doing life with, and what we're going to be receiving. But some of the times, we don't have a choice. When it comes to what family you're in, you just that's just what you got dealt. That's what you have. But there are other times that we have a choice. And placement, we can't always avoid it, but sometimes we certainly can. And placement, sometimes we can't take credit for it and go, oh yeah, look what I did to be able to get it was just, you know what, you were just blessed and that's what you were dealt. But we all make these financial ripples. You know, when I think about ripples, I think some of the ripples that we receive, they feel really good. That it's kind of enjoyable and we kind of like it. And it's like, wow, this kind of feel, I think I'm going to keep hanging out here because I like these ripples. And then there's some ripples that we don't like and we don't enjoy. They're not fun to be around. It's not enjoyable. We don't like them when we're receiving them. But see, how we feel about them doesn't determine whether or not they are good or bad. That it's not the feeling that determines the grade. Instead, it's the lasting impact that determines the grade of was that a good ripple for us or was that a bad ripple for us. But we certainly can look at our lives and we can see the ripple effects of who we are, of what we end up becoming, and of how we treat others. That those ripple effects, that they travel deeper and they last longer than we could ever imagine. It's why we need to be intentional. It's why we need to be careful about the ripples that we are going about creating. So when it comes to financial ripples, I think there's a few major financial ripples that are out there that end up taking place. That one of those ripples is the ripple of worrying about money. And that's just one of those ripples. There's some people that they have become professional money worriers. And the people around them know how good they are at worrying about the money. That is something that certainly shows. I think another major ripple that ends up taking place, and these don't have to be exclusive, it's only one or the other, because sometimes even the people that worry about money even do good at this next step. And that is that some people, when it comes to the ripple that they do, that they are great at saving money. That they save it. That they go, you know, I'm going to live on less. I'm going to save some. I'm going to put it away because you just never know what's going to happen. I'm going to live on less because there might be some opportunities that come along later. And I just want to be able to secure that opportunity without any debt. So I'm just going to save. And that becomes a major ripple. Here's another major ripple. Financing happiness. That's a major ripple. That I don't have it, I really can't afford it, but you know what? I just think I'm going to be happier if, and so I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to finance happiness. And the last major ripple that I'll share with you that I think happens to be the best financial ripple, and that is financial contentment. It's financial contentment. When you can be content with your stuff, And you can go, I can enjoy life with what I have. That I don't need more to be able to be more happy. That I can just enjoy. I am financially content. And that comes with so many blessings. So I've got two words I just kind of want to throw at you. And I really wish that I could just kind of peek into your minds and think of and see what you're thinking of when I say these. And I'm not going to have the opportunity to do so, but I certainly wish I could. And here are the two words. Financial freedom. Financial freedom. And see, I really wish I could peek in and see what's going on, because I think that there's going to be some of you guys in here that when you hear that, what goes through your mind instantly is you're like going, finally, I get to spend. I can go spend. I have the freedom. I can go and I can do. And thank you for setting me free. And I think for somebody else, financial freedom, for them that they're looking at, they're going, finally, I'm no longer trapped by debt. That I have eliminated my debt. I've worked hard and I now have financial freedom because I am not entrapped by it anymore. Financial freedom. And so we end up doing this thing where we say, I'm going to pursue one or I'm going to pursue the other, but we can't pursue both. We can't pursue just the spend, and having the freedom to spend. We can't pursue that one. And pursue this place of saying, I have financial freedom because I don't owe anything and I am set free. And I don't have that worry anymore. That we end up choosing. That one interpretation, it points to reckless spending. And the other one points to disciplined spending. And where you land on the spectrum, I think, has a lot to do with the ripples that you've received throughout your life. So I do have a couple of questions for you that I want you to look at and ponder. One question is, who do you wish would have had a bigger impact on your financial habits? Who is it that comes to mind? And for you to just kind of think about that and to just identify, well, who is it for me? Who do I wish would have had a bigger impact on my financial habits? Here's another question. Who do you wish wouldn't have had the influence they did on your financial habits? Who do you wish that you wouldn't have been around and you wouldn't have seen that and you wouldn't have started feeling that way and thinking you're going to behave that way and you started... Who is that? Because, see, both of these are ones that want to have a ripple effect on you. I'll ask you one more, and it's not going to come up on the screen, but who has actually had the most impact on you when it comes to your financial choices? Who's had the most? See, I think that some of you are able to identify somebody that has done very good, and they've been great for you. But I also would imagine that there's some of you that you've identified somebody who the ripple effect that they created was not a positive one, but yet they still had the most impact on you. And as we've talked about this series from the beginning, we've said that ripples about us having a responsibility with what we're going to do in the ripples we create. But also we need to know and understand when it comes to ripples that we can recover. And we can recover from bad ripples that have come our way. That we don't have to be locked in. And so whatever those ripples are that have come your way, that they end up looking, when you look at them and you look at yourself and how you behave when it comes to money, that there's been some ripples that have affected you and how you earn or how you spend. That there's been some ripples that have come your way when it comes to either how you end up hoarding or how you end up sharing. That there's been ripple effects that have come your way, that they've shaped and they've had an impact on what you owe and how much you owe versus looking at what do you save and what do you have saved and what is your discipline, what is your habit when it comes to saving. That these are ripples, and we all create financial ripples. Even the kids that are in the room today, you create financial ripples. that you have peers and they're seeing what you do and how you handle it, that they are seeing you and you have financial ripples. I wonder what financial ripples you hope to have on others. That for you, when you identify your life and that you have this opportunity, what financial ripples do you hope to have on other people? What ones do you hope to have on your children? What ones do you hope to have on your grandchildren? Solomon, who was a very wise man, in fact, he was the king of Israel, the third king of Israel, he actually said something about this. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22, he said, good people leave an inheritance to their grandchildren. That was Solomon. Good people leave an inheritance to their grandchildren. A little over 5 years ago, Cheryl and I received an inheritance. And I've talked about it a couple of different times. And usually I just kind of give a real short, abbreviated story, and I say something to the effect of that Cheryl's parents decided one day that they wanted to give us an early inheritance. Her parents are alive and well, and they wanted to give us an early inheritance, and they gave us a substantial amount. There was a life-changing amount of money with what we were able to start doing with this. Now we put this money to work. And they wanted us to have that. And I just say, yeah, they just wanted to give us this early inheritance, and they wanted to watch us enjoy it. And they were smart enough to wait until we were in our 40s before they would give that to us. And so I say some of those things. But the longer version is actually this. That what they passed on to us was something that they received from Cheryl's dad's dad. That her grandfather left this as an inheritance. And her parents decided when they received that there was going to become a point in time when they were going to say, we just want to give to you this that we received from Dawn. And that's what that it was really an inheritance that they passed to us, but it came from Dawn. They were just smart enough to make sure that we were in our 40s before they gave it to us. And when I see what Solomon writes here, just good people. You know, it doesn't say godly people, just good. It's good for you to think about other generations and not get all wrapped up in yourself and what's just in it just for you. I like the two categories when it comes to money that Dave Ramsey puts people in. Because he just boils it all down and he says there are two categories of people. He says there's the nerds and there's the free spirits. The nerds and the free spirit. And we know who the nerds are, right? The nerds are the controllers. The nerds are the one that's tracking everything. The nerds are the one that when you walk in the door, they say, how much did you spend? I mean, it is, hey, what'd you spend that on? That is the nerd. They are trying to track and keep everything. They want to manage it all and forecast it all. That is the nerd. I happen to be a nerd financially. And then there are free spirits. And free spirits are the ones that go, well, I wasn't planning on it, but that sure is a good opportunity. I mean, look at that sale. And you know what? It's okay if it takes us 4 years to pay for that outfit. It's okay. It's financeable. I actually heard this week something that was just incredible. A 22-year-old woman that ended up creating a couple of businesses, and she's doing quite well. And the reason that she created these businesses is because she has discovered that we live in an experience economy. That it's, we like the experiences, and we want to have the experiences, and we want to pay for, and we want to spend, and we want to do. We live in an experience economy. And so she created one business all about that. I don't have time to get into that, but I'm going to get into the second one that she ended up creating after that one. And the one that she created was called Rent the Runway. Rent the Runway. And she created this business because she was with her sister, and they were going out. And her sister was complaining that she didn't have anything to wear. And she's at her sister's place. She's looking in her closet, and she's seeing all of these beautiful outfits that she has. She says, what's wrong with these? And her sister told her, you know, every single one of those, I have pictures out on social media. I need something new to wear. And that's when she dawned on her. She said, you know what? I'm going to create a business. Because people are buying things, they're only wearing it once or twice to a special thing, and they're spending all of this money, they won't wear it again. And so why not just rent the runway and rent these things that you can just kind of turn back and give back. Because she's aware that there's this experience economy that people are in today. And she's going, hey, what can I do with this? And how can I make a good choice and help others make a good choice? Well, see, Dave goes back to this thing where he says, you're either a nerd or you're a free spirit is kind of what he lumps you into. And there's some anomalies out there where you go, well, I don't think I'm either one. Might be some anomalies out there where you're going, I'm kind of both. But usually, typically, a household where there's a couple in that household, typically, you've got a nerd and you've got a free spirit. And you wonder why you are financially butting heads all the time. It's because your approach is different. You know, parenting. Some people think that parenting determines where people end up landing on the financial spectrum of life, how they think about money, how they manage money, how they spend it. And it doesn't determine it. Does it have an impact? It sure does. But it is not something that you go, hey, because you had this parent, this is how you are. Just look at siblings and see how they handle money differently than each other, and you will see that parenting isn't this end-all, be-all that determines how somebody's going to end up managing the money. We have to balance our financial approach. And so when it comes to this, balancing our financial approach, it actually requires a couple of things. That one of the things that it requires diligence without worry. That there would be somebody that's going, I'm going to be diligent about this. We're going to manage it well, and I'm not going to worry about it, but I am definitely going to be diligent about it. And a second piece to come in and have this whole balance is focus without obsession. That, yeah, we need to be focused on it, but we just can't be obsessed with it. And these are the things that come in and bring a balance to our financial approach. You know, when we save, choosing to save is choosing to have a missed opportunity now. That's what happens. Whenever we save, we are giving up an opportunity to have something now so that we can create a greater opportunity later. That's what saving is. And so the more you save and you manage this way, the greater the opportunities you can have in the future. And it's about making choices. We're going to be looking in this book of Ecclesiastes chapter 5. And we're going to be looking, and again, this is a guy, his name's King Solomon, and then that he's writing about some experiences, some thoughts, and Ecclesiastes is one of those really interesting books to read in your Bible. That in fact, you could be reading the book of Ecclesiastes, and you might even start thinking and asking yourself, what was this guy smoking when he was writing all of this? Because, it is just this roller coaster kind of emotional journey that he's going. And this is like, he's writing. You could just kind of imagine him just weeping and crying some of the times when he's writing some of the things. And then other times he just kind of imagine, he just has this kind of a sinister, because, it's just all over the place. And so we're going to look in chapter 5, and we're going to look at where I think he kind of had a sober moment, at least in this particular version, as in this particular section of this book. And we're going to look at this and see what is it that Solomon had to say about money. So, starting in verse 10, Ecclesiastes chapter 5, starting in verse 10, he says, those who love money will never have enough. Those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. Listen, I heard this years ago. And what was said was this. So did you know the difference between the multimillionaires and all the commoners? Because there's one thing that sets them apart that truly differentiates them. Of course, you're listening and trying to figure, what is that? And then the person said this. The multimillionaires, they know that the money doesn't bring the happiness. That's the difference. And the people that are living more common, they're still convinced and still think that more money means more happiness. And if you just kind of look back on your own life, if you're anything like me, that there was a time in my life when, and my financial status was here. And I thought, if I could get to here, I'd be happy. Well, I got to here. And you know what happened when I got to here? I had this thought. You know, if I could be right here financially, then I'd be happy. And see, it's like it keeps moving with you. And the multimillionaires, they have discovered more money, it doesn't mean more happiness. And Solomon was somebody who had a lot of money. In fact, his lot is the biggest lot in our Bible. That nobody compares, Old Testament or New, nobody compares to the wealth that Solomon had. Verse 11, he says, the more you have, the more people come to help you spend it. So what good is wealth, except perhaps to watch it slip through your fingers? My senior year in high school, I had an acquaintance, didn't do a lot with this guy. His name is Jeff. In our senior year, he turned 18. And when he turned 18 years old, he received a death benefit from his parents who had passed away when he was young. He had been living with his grandma all these years, and he received this. And when he received his death benefit, within 2 weeks, he went out and bought himself a very nice motorcycle, went out and bought himself a pickup truck, and went out and bought himself a boat, all within a 2-week period. That one of the things that I don't ever recall taking place with Jeff was I don't ever recall that he said, you know, Grandma, thanks for the way you've cared for me all of these years. I want to do this for you. I don't recall anything that he did for his grandmother. But I do recall how he continued to pay for his friends with all of the entertainment choices that he continued to do since he turned 18. See, Jeff spent his senior year in high school, he spent an amount of money that many of our career-driven adults in this room, he spent more his senior year than what you will make this year. And he just spent it all. And that went right through his fingers. I can tell you that one of the ways that had a ripple effect on me was I was already the guy that liked the shiny stuff, that liked the new stuff. I was already that guy. But when I saw him being able to get all the things that he got and the fun that he was having with it, and the few times that I went and did something with him, I started a path of going, well, I want to get my hands on all the things that I could afford to get. And I did. And I started down that road. And for a little over a 10-year period, I did. I just spent, and I spent, and I spent, and I spent. And it started with, well, I have the money right now. I can afford it. Let me just buy it. And then it got to the place where it was like, okay, well, you know what? I don't have the money right now, but I think it'll come in when the bill's due, and so I can go ahead and get it. And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, well, I can't keep up with what I want and what I want to keep getting on that path, but I discovered that they had these credit plans that you could buy something and you didn't have to pay for it for 18 months, 24 months, 36 months later. That you could just get it now. And I thought that was the greatest thing. And I went down that path. And in my late 20s, right before I was turning 30, I finally woke up to this financial mess that I had created and said, I've got to get out of all of this. And it took me setting out a path and working hard to be able to get out of the hole that I had created. That yes, Jeff had a ripple effect on me. Was it his fault? No, not at all. It was mine. But that ripple effect certainly lasted with me. Verse 12, let's continue what Solomon shared. People who work hard sleep well, whether they eat little or much, but the rich seldom get a good night's sleep. There is another serious problem I've seen under the sun. Hoarding riches harms the saver. That we just kind of hoard it all and try to have it all and keep trying to build it up. And he goes on, he says, money is put into risky investments that turn sour and everything is lost. And in the end, there is nothing left to pass on to one's children. So I grew up with money-wise parents. And if you were to talk to them today, I think they would tell you we're wiser today than we were when we were raising you. That they continue to grow in that. But as I just look back and I reflect on the ripples, the intentional ripples that they created for me. And some of these ripples, it took me a while to come back around and live out what it is that they modeled. But one thing they modeled was create a written budget. Come up with a written plan of how you're going to manage what's coming in and what's going out. Another thing that they did that was a ripple for me was give God a minimum of 10% of what you make to your local church. Now, we didn't have any family members that were in ministry. It wasn't like, oh, we need to do that because they're in it. It was just, that's just what they did. What they modeled, what they taught. What my sister and I even did as kids, because they modeled that and made us do that while we were young, like what Corey was sharing just a few minutes ago. That was a ripple effect that they had on me. A ripple effect they had on me was don't charge what you can't pay for and you're going to pay interest on. Don't do that. Don't do interest. Now, again, it took me a few years to get past where I was, to get back to this place that they had modeled and this ripple that they tried to create for me. And the last one that I'll share with you is this. Always leave room for generosity. Leave room so that you can be generous to other people, so that you can help other people in times of need. Leave room for that. And they modeled that. And it was the ripples that they created for me. Verse 15. We all come to the end of our lives as naked and empty-handed as on the day we were born. We can't take our riches with us. As a pastor, I have done numerous funerals, memorials, whatever you want to call them. But I have yet to do a service where the hearse has a U-Haul connected to it and they're trying to take their stuff with them. I haven't done that. Because see, you can't. You can't take it with you. That instead, it's about what kind of impact that you're going to have when you leave this earth, because we're all going to leave it. And then Solomon said this. He says, and this too is a very serious problem. People leave this world no better off than when they came. All their hard work is for nothing, like working for the wind. You've probably have heard about something radical that Bill and Melinda Gates started. They started this in 2010. And in 2010, they made this radical decision. And they said that they were going to have this giving pledge. And that they pledged to give away more than 50% of their wealth. That's what they wanted to do. They just wanted to give it away. One of the wealthiest persons on the planet said, that's a choice that I am making. Shortly after they made that choice, he went and talked to another very wealthy person on the planet, Warren Buffett, and said, Warren, this is what we're going to do. Would you be interested in making a pledge to give away at least 50% of your wealth and to just give it away? to give away some of it in this lifetime, but when you die, that you are not just going to give it to your family member, you're going to give it away to something that's going to be worthy. Would you be willing to do that? And he decided to. Right now, there are 168 billionaires that have made this pledge. That they've come to discover that, you know what, I want to leave this world better than what I got here. And you've got people that they don't even necessarily believe in God, that they don't believe in Jesus, they don't believe in the Bible. Some of them are just flat out atheists, some of them believe other religious things. But they're just getting to this point where this thing that Solomon started talking about. And a serious problem of not leaving the world better than when you came in. And you can't take anything with you, so why not make an impact? Why not leave a financial ripple with some lasting effects? And that they've done this. And as they've done this, they've identified some things that they wanted to impact. That they wanted to do all that they could to alleviate poverty. To be able to provide basic medical care. To be able to have environment sustainability. To have medical research. That they've identified these things. They said, we just want to give to these. That we want to help with global education. And they are giving it out. During my youth ministry years, one of the things that surprised me was when it would come time to go to camp. And camp would always be expensive, summer camp. And we would have some teenagers who their family, their reason for not going would be that they just could not afford it. And it was interesting because there were some kids that I would look at and go, you know what, yeah, you probably can't afford it. We can help you with that. And they go, oh, no, we got it. Okay. And then there were some kids that said, we just can't afford to go. And that was kind of tough because they kind of looked at where they live and looked at what their parents drive. And it's kind of like, wow, you guys can't afford it? We just need some help. And you go, okay, well, I'll see what we can do to help you. And I had two different types of people that would help provide scholarships to send people to camp. That I had people that would come to me and everybody was just kind of, it was all just like, I don't need credit for it. I don't need glory for it. I don't even want anybody to know about it. I just want to be able to help. And there would be people that were very well-to-do, done very well for themselves, and they would just single me out and say, hey, Will, if that ever happens, I just want you to know, I want you to come to me. There were times that they would just come and say, hey, here's a check. Make sure you can find somebody that can go to camp with it. They would just give it to me. And that didn't surprise me. But let me tell you what did surprise me. This was my biggest surprise probably in all of youth ministry. That I would have adults of very simple means that would come to me and that they would say, I want to help sponsor a kid. And I don't know the first time it happened if they could kind of see this look on my face like, how are you going to do that? Because it just floored me. That they just had a simple means of income, that they lived very simply, and it's like, how could you afford to do this? I never said that. And they would pay for this. And you see, this is somebody that understands, you know what, I can't have this happiness just by going out there and just having more and more and more and more and more. It's about making sure that I understand where am I at, where's my lane, and how can I live out my life to its utmost fulfillment. And I think that there is something about being generous that brings on a kind of happiness that we don't get any other way. I think that's why whenever we look in our Bible, there's so much in there about being generous and giving. But here is certainly something that is true, that generous people, they don't buy things to impress people. That generous people, they use their resources to have a lasting impact on the lives of others. That generous people know and understand financial ripples. They do. And those people that would do that, and the people that are continuing to do it today and helping to provide an opportunity for somebody to go to a place where they're going to grow spiritually, they're going to I want to have a financial ripple that can lead to a spiritual ripple that will help with a moral ripple, that'll even help with the relational ripples. I just want to use this and leverage it for all that I can. And there is incredible value to that. Solomon went on for those people that wouldn't be making that kind of a change, and they wouldn't be just using their money to have a positive impact. They're just worried about it, and it slips through their fingers. It's just throughout their lives, they live under a cloud, frustrated, discouraged, and angry. Even so, I have noticed one thing at least that is good. It is good for people to eat, drink, and enjoy their work under the sun during their short life God has given them, and to accept their lot in life. And it is a good thing to receive wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it. To enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God. And God keeps such people so busy enjoying life that they take no time to brood over the past. Wouldn't you like to have that financial ripple? That you just are enjoying life. And you're trusting what God is providing, and you're managing it well, and you're enjoying life, and you have no time or energy to brood over the past. Solomon is a very wise man. And the reason that he is so wise is because God gave him wisdom. See, God, as Solomon was becoming the third king of Israel, God interacted with Solomon and said, Solomon, you can ask me for one thing and I will grant it to you. I will give it to you. Solomon pondered it, and then he let God know that he wants wisdom. And let's just look at two verses that kind of summarize all of that in 2 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 11, 12. God said to Solomon, because your greatest desire is to help your people, and you did not ask for wealth, riches, fame, or even the death of your enemies or a long life, but rather you asked for wisdom and knowledge to properly govern my people, I will certainly give you the wisdom and knowledge you requested. But I will also give you wealth, riches, and fame, such as no other king has had before you or will ever have in the future. That Solomon was blessed with incredible wealth. And when we look throughout our Bible, we can see some other people that God has chose to bless godly people with wealth. But when we also look through our Bible and peruse through it, guess what else we will see? We will see godly people that are poor. That it is not that godly equals wealth. We can see godly people that we never even get an understanding of where were they at financially. We don't have an understanding of their financial status one way or the other. See, we're all stewards of the stuff. And we can manage it well, or we can manage it poorly. And then the more that we put ourselves in a position to be in some positive ripples and learn from that and make sure that we're doing life wisely when it comes to the finances, the better off we're going to be. So I thought it would be fitting, as we talk about these financial ripples, for me to give out to a couple of you guys, to three of you guys, some books that have had a ripple effect on me. And so I just have some dollar signs here that I'm going to kind of throw these squishies out. And as I throw them out, if that's you, then you're going to be able to get your hands on one of these three books I'm going to reveal here in just a moment. So I'm not going to look, so I don't want anybody to be going, oh, he threw that, he targeted me. He was, why'd you do that? So I'm just going to kind of not look at the area where I'm throwing them to. And so that way nobody can say, oh, yeah, he did that to you. Yeah, you were the one that really needed that. But here are three books that I want to be able to let you exchange your little squishy dollar sign for, to be able to get your hand and your mind and your heart on some of these things that have had an impact on me in my life. So this book right here, The Richest Man in Babylon, this book is written during a biblical time period, but it's not based on anything that's like Christian and that you're supposed to be doing this as a Christ follower. It is a secular book written in that particular time period that tells the fable, tells a story to let you learn a powerful lesson about money management of two guys that grew up as neighbors, as bricklayers, and started out their adult life as bricklayers. One of them is retiring as a bricklayer, and the other one is the wealthiest person in the region. And it tells the story of why did we have the same opportunities, grow up in the same places, and yet you became the wealthiest person, and here I am still at the place that I started at. And so this is a book that I'm going to leave, and you're going to be able to exchange your squishy for. Another book that I've read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, Robert Kiyosaki, he ends up telling the story of hey, I had a dad that he was my poor dad, my dad that actually was raising me in the house that I was growing up in. That was my poor dad. And my poor dad had a great education, and my poor dad had a great job. But my dad was poor, and money was always a problem in our household. And then I had this rich dad. And my rich dad really wasn't my dad, but he was somebody that took me in under his wing while I was still young. And I can't remember, I think he was about 10 years old when that took place. And he wanted this guy to teach him about money. And the guy that taught him about money never even had a high school diploma. And he was a very wealthy man. And he learned a lot. And it's a story contrasting the choices that are made. And so it's a great book to read. And then another one, and it should be no surprise that we got a Dave Ramsey book, okay? But Total Money Makeover. Of taking this approach of saying, hey, what if we could just kind of start all over in the way that we kind of look at our money, and that we could begin to manage it well, that we would begin to set up some steps, these little baby steps that we would end up taking, and that we would set a path of where we want to end up. That we could have a total money makeover. And so that is a third book that is going to be there for you. So after we pray, after we dismiss, when our care team comes up here and we're praying for other people, you can just come on up here and exchange your little squishy dollar, and you can be able to get that book. Listen, we can all recover from whatever ripples that we have received, even bad financial ones. We can recover from whatever choices we have made. We can even be at a place where we go, you know what, I don't have these money problem issues, but maybe when it comes to what it is that you owe, but maybe the problem is that you're just not being as generous as really what you should be. And that we could all learn and grow and become more of what God intended us to be. And that we would leave this place, this life, this earth, and we would leave it better than when we came. Because the approach that we take and say, I want to be intentional with the ripples that I make, even my financial ones. Pray with me. God, you certainly are the one who has given us the gift of life. And God, thank you for giving us instruction and leaving us with an instruction manual that we can look at your word and we can read through it and we can understand how should we do life. God, I pray that our trust in you and in what you've written would just grow and grow and grow, and that we would be able to live out this life to its fullest because we would trust you. Help us make the course corrections where we need to be making them so that we can live out a financial life that is certainly in line with what you intend for us. Jesus, it's in your name we pray. Amen. We'll see you guys next week as we continue Ripples.